Hi everyone, today we're going to be diving into Nietzsche's thought. More specifically, we're going to be diving into Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch. I'm going to discuss what the Übermensch is, and even more importantly, how the Übermensch is considered the genesis of transhuman thought, and ultimately what trajectory and outcome human beings' technological development will take. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch is first presented in his famous work Thus Spoke Zarathustra. The Ubermensch can be thought of as an ideal human who transcends traditional values and limitations. They create their own interpretations and values and don't accept those imposed by some external truth like God, objective morality, or some other kind of external morality. Now, there's more to the Ubermensch than this, but for our purposes, I want to keep the emphasis here. This is important here because these two concepts will become the seeds for the posthumanist movement. These are the transcendence of human limitations. This is important because the human body is a kind of limitation. You get sick randomly, you age, you die, you can't fly. There's a whole host of other constraints that the physical body places upon you. The second is going to be going beyond traditional values, which the Ubermensch does, which allows you not to have any external truth or moral stipulations about going above the required changes that are going to be needed to the human form. This means you don't see the traditional human form as somehow sacred or not to be tampered with. There's no religion that tells you a man should be kept in this form and not altered. There's no objective structure to what a human being is. Nothing solid or stable to define it. This means it can be anything and can become anything to one's liking and making. It's amorphous. The only limitation being if it can be carried out in practice. And this position indeed is where we find ourselves today. Now, Nietzsche saw the Ubermensch as a goal for humanity, a symbol of overcoming the human form and its material constraints. I think this quote can best summarize the concept we have been discussing here. Man is a rope, tied between beast and Ubermensch, a rope over an abyss, a dangerous crossing, a dangerous wayfaring, a dangerous looking back, a dangerous trembling and halting. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not an end. Honestly, I think this quote is brilliant and captures the entire human trajectory and program all in this one quote. There is some very important points here, starting with the beast, which we can think of as primitive humans, freshly cast off from paradise, no clothes, no tools, akin to the other beasts in the forest. Prometheus gives these primitive human beings fire and they begin their technological development, their technological advancement, creating tools, augmenting themselves in their environment until we get halfway along this rope, which is where we currently reside. Another brilliant aspect from this quote is that he describes this historical process and crossing with such chaotic movement and trepidation. Again, I think this is worth quoting in its entirety, just so that the weight of it sinks in. He says, a dangerous crossing, a dangerous wayfaring, a dangerous looking back, a dangerous trembling and halting. What he's really alluding to here is a historical process, from the beast to the Ubermensch. And he's showing us the material problems and issues of materiality that are going to come along the way of this crossing. It's dangerous. We might not make it. Say a supernova from another galaxy might hit us, or a gamma ray burst, or a comet, or some other cosmic phenomenon might hit us. And if this happens, there's no guarantee that we won't fall off the rope. There's no guarantee that we will reach the end goal of the Ubermensch. Further, he says, not only is the material world a threat to us, but during our historical program, we ourselves are a threat to it too. Sometimes we stop in uncertainty, look back and waver in our course. Sometimes we tremble and doubt ourselves, if we can make it to the end of the final stage of the Ubermensch. Sometimes individuality and collectively, we will doubt if this program is even worth undertaking in the first place. As he says, we will halt. What I mean is that as technologically rapidly changes, how we function and operate, really starts to change too. If you think about social media and the way that it's changed how human beings engage and interact with each other, it's very clear that technological developments throughout history have had drastic impacts to us individually and as a collective culture and societies. Or other things that you can think of are, for example, Neuralink or other body augmenting devices, gene editing, other technological advances that accelerate at a nauseating pace. And they start to become even harder to accept, so we might end up seeing a reactionary tendency in us and collectively try to stop, as he says, or even quit altogether. That's the part here that he's alluding to, where the danger is not only that we might not make it due to some material catastrophe. The danger is also that we, because of how quickly these advances are being thrust upon us at an increasing exponential rate, it becomes so nauseating for us that we ourselves are the ones who halt along this progress to the transhuman, the posthuman position, and we kind of waver individually and eventually maybe even collectively. So he expects along this process for there to be these conservative reactionary movements against this, an attempt at a return to traditional structure, traditional values, things that are concretely defined and not completely amorphous and open. So an emphasis I want to make here is that rationality, i.e. technology, stemming and arising from the Enlightenment, this idea of progress, rational technological progress, has always been the driving force of this movement from beast to Ubermensch. Technology allows us to stand a chance against the material world and its imposition. It allows us to have water and electricity and clothes, medication, to fight diseases, combat aging. Technology is the only tool of praxis that can augment and alter the material world. Human fate and technology are intertwined as one. There is a quote from a historian, David Noble, that captures man's technological entwined historical program. It says, "The present enchantment with things technological, the very measure of modern enlightenment, is rooted in religious myth and ancient imaginings. Although today's technologists, in their sober pursuit of utility, power, and profit, seem to set society's standards for rationality, they are driven also by distant dreams, spiritual yearnings for supernatural redemption. However dazzling and daunting their display of worldly wisdom, their true inspiration lies elsewhere, in the enduring, otherworldly quest for transcendence and salvation." To me, this quote signifies the historical human program, the crossing of Nietzsche's rope, if you will. And I want to point out here that this quote really, where he references the technologists, a good example to think of here is a lot of like VC firms, for example, like A16Z, Anderson Horowitz's firm. There is of course, they back mostly technology companies, and I think he put out like a paper a couple months ago where it was like the Technologist Manifesto. I'm misquoting that there, but he explicitly references accelerationism, Nick Land, like techno-capital accelerationism. So I would say like at least some of them are very aware of these ideas and this kind of crossing and moving from like primitive human beasts to moving all the way along to like Ubermensch, a posthuman entity. So even some of them have like explicitly said that this is what they're interested in. And again, it's grounded in this idea of enlightenment, rationality, progress, that how we are thrown into the world, cast out into the world as human beings, we're incomplete and constrained, we age, we die, but these things don't necessarily have to be this way. They can be augmented and changed through technology, and we can change the material world so it's easier for us to live in, and we can change ourselves so it's easier to live in. To me, that quote really signifies the historical human program But I think of where he mentions like myths. I really like this because I've always thought of the human program and trajectory as a myth. And the myth I'm talking about is, of course, the myth of the human fall from paradise. Cast out and thrown into the harsh material world, only to attempt through sheer will and labor to return back to paradise, is the story of humanity as a whole. So where will this program lead us? What lies waiting at the end of this rope? What will the Übermensch, the post-human being, be like? Here I can't really offer you too much. I think the best thing would be to let your imagination run wild when it comes to this kind of thing, and you can probably imagine what kind of chimeras and post-human entities will arise from this. We will become something from sci-fi novels, I think. So maybe a look to sci-fi texts like Greg Egan's Diaspora or William Gibson's Neuromancer or their other works, or even some classics like Stanislav Lem. Ian Banks also gives a whole like very great view, I think. A famous transhumanist thinker, Max Moore, says, "The ability to alter bodily form at will through technology such as surgery, genetic engineering, and nanotechnology, and uploading. This shows the potential states that human entities can take." In Greg Egan's novel Diaspora, there are some people who want to remain completely flesh, others who are genetically enhanced with like nanobots and genetically engineered, and there's some others in his novel who are just disembodied mind. And then of course similar, I would imagine this kind of like similar to, if you think about if you ever seen like Ghost in the Shell, Major Kusanagi, where she can basically like transplant her consciousness to like any body by just like plugging it in. So kind of like the people in his novel are like disembodied consciousnesses, right? So this is very different from our current human form, our current human subjective experience. And this all kind of leads me to the grand finale, the grand conclusion. Whatever form this new post-human Ubermensch takes, they will not be what we traditionally conceive of as human. As Max Moore says, by thoughtfully, carefully, yet boldly applying technology to ourselves, we can become something no longer accurately described as human. We can become post-human. And I think here a very sad irony presents itself. Man is kind of, again, in that mythical fall from paradise view. Man, the cast out fallen being, wills and labors with all its might just to reach the final stage, which is its very negation. Whatever this new post-human entity is, it won't be human. Some of you are disturbed by this and are saying, quickly, go back, let's go back. And this is, of course, if you remember the Nietzsche quote, this is just as how Nietzsche predicted and expected. Back to religion, back to tradition. But as Nietzsche showed us, we on the rope are already teetering, ready to fall. If we stop technological progress, if we try to halt, even regress, we will also be negated. The material world is unforgiving, and the probability that some supernova, gamma ray burst, other cosmic event, or asteroid impact, or some other cosmic phenomenon negates us will eventually come true. And if it doesn't, the eventual death of our sun and the eventual heat death of the universe will negate us. To me, this paradox of humanity, this is the paradox of humanity. Cast out from paradise, man is destined to be negated either way. In a quick summary of what I just said, basically, the way I view this is, if you're, as we take Nietzsche's example, we're on the rope, basically there's no going back and there's no going forward, because if we go forward, the traditional human form is negated through technology. We become so augmented that we're unrecognizable, like the examples I gave from Greg Egan's novel, where everybody is some kind of genetic engineered cyborg entity or disembodied mind, and that's the direction, the trajectory we're heading. But whatever these post-human entities are, whatever these Ubermensch are, they're not the traditional human form. So the traditional human form is negated. The other example is if we do nothing. You think this is scary, let's regress, let's go back. You take a reactionary stance. But as I've shown, this also doesn't work because the material world will eventually end us and negate us anyways. So basically all you can do in this example is choose the way you want to go out. Choose the way you want to be negated. But I've found this very interesting, and that's why I gave the example of the myth of the fall from paradise. Because this man and human beings as fallen beings from paradise, they're cast out into the material world, and there is no salvation in their course. They're either going to be negated one way or the other, and I find this very paradoxical and ironic and a little bit tragic too. Alright everyone, thank you as always for watching, and I hope you found this discussion regarding Nietzsche's Übermensch and posthumanism interesting and insightful. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video with your friends if you thought it was interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I have many more of these coming, so stay tuned for those, and have a great day. Thank you very much for watching.